this last company I worked for was called Sassafras Films. And one of my jobs was to interview actresses who would meet my boss. And I did. Anyway, I would go in and I would read with them. And so I started to realize that I could do this. That company folded, and I went on to another company called General Film Corporation at General Service Studios. And I continued doing that for my job. And then I started making out the paychecks. I was getting $200 a week, and these actresses were getting a lot of money. I thought I was better than they were in the reading. So I stopped being afraid. By then I was 26 years old. Very, very late to be starting in this business. But I guess that dream had always stayed in the back of my mind. My grandfather called me and said, well, you got nothing to do. Bring Mike, he had a station wagon he wanted brought from Beverly Hills to a home he had in Scottsdale. And I said, fine. So I drove the car over there, and I rear-ended someone on the way. It was just a really bad time in my life. Anyway, I get there. Sure, he'll be furious with me, and he started laughing. He goes to bed early that night. He had a new wife, whom I loved. She was younger than my mother, but you get the picture. But I loved her. And she and I stayed up late one night. And she said, Sharon, we split a bottle of champagne, so neither of us were feeling any pain. She said, Sharon, you're 26 years old. You have nothing to show for your life. What do you want to do? And she said, don't think about it. Don't think. Don't put any qualifications on it. Whatever it is, just say it. I said, I want to be an actress. She said, so? I said, well, Mary, I'm a little old, you know. And I said, Grandpa told me many, many years ago that to stay out of it, it was a filthy business. And, you know, just don't want to rattle anybody's cage. So, anyway, she said, well, when I was your age, Sharon, she said, I was under contract to MGM. I said, really? She said, yes, it wasn't very good. I only lasted a year. But she said, did you ever see the movie Stage Door? I said, sure. She said, well, I'm in it. She showed it to me, and she walks across and says one line. She was very pretty. Anyway, I said, please don't tell Grandpa we had this conversation. Please. I don't want the trouble. She said, I promise I won't. Well, the next morning, I'm summoned to his room. He said, that's ridiculous. I said, Grandpa, I asked Mary not to tell you, you know. And he said, I mean, it's ridiculous. You think I'd stop you. I said, really? Again, I was 26 going on maybe 15 now. You tell the story in this day and age and they're going, boy, retarded. But I was very backward. He said, you want to be an actress? I said, yes, Grandpa. He said, so what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, I know of this acting class in Los Angeles because I checked it out. Because my cousin was an actress. Her name was Elizabeth Bauer. She played the sidekick on Ironsides. I said, well, the acting class is it's $150 for 3 months. No, at that day and age, you know. And he said, and I had no money. The company I'd worked for had folded. I had nothing. He said, $150. I said, yes. He says, okay, you got $150. That was huge to me. I said, thank you. He said, fine. So now what are you going to do? What are you going to do until this happens? Excuse me. I said, well, I'll get a job again. And he said, I said, well, I'll start studying and I'll get a job again. And he said, would you like to go home now? I said, Grandpa, I just got here and I was trying to be respectful, you know. And I said, no, you know, I want to stay and visit with you. He said, do you want to go home? I'll have Mary get you a ticket. You have this dream? Well, she got me the ticket, and I got on the plane. I'm only moved by this story because there's a time in hopefully everyone's, at least most people's lives, hopefully, where an epiphany happens, and your life changes forever. And for some reason, I had my $150. I had my grandfather's permission, and I knew I would not fail. When I was on that airplane, I knew I wouldn't fail. I get to Los Angeles. I auditioned for the workshop. She thought it was just awful, and she put me in with the teenagers. I mean, they were like 13-year-olds. I didn't care. I didn't care. Nobody could insult me. No one could discourage me. I got into that class, but I had to now, the class was on Thursdays. I'm only telling you this story because anybody who sees this, any young person who sees this, once you decide, once you really do decide that you're going to do something, the universe falls into place. I had to go get a job. Well, I was a very good secretary. But that was a day job. Well, the acting class was on Thursdays from 2 to 6. And I would not be deterred. I simply would not work during the day. My acting class was the most important. So I thought, well, I thought I'd be a bartender. That'd be fun. Lady bartender. I thought maybe at the Bel Air they'd take me. Anyway, or a waitress. I didn't care. You know, the phone rings. And it's a man with whom we had done business in this other company, this Sassafras Films. His name was Arthur Marks. And he said, Sharon, I'm starting a new company. And he said, you're the best production secretary I've ever seen. I want you to be my personal secretary. I said, Mr. Marks, I can't. He said, why not? I said, you'll laugh if I tell you. He said, go ahead. I said, I'm going to be an actress. He said, I'm not laughing. What are you going to do till that happens? I said, well, I have to get a job. It has to be a nighttime job because my class is from 2 to 6 on Thursdays. He said, you got Thursdays off. Now what? I said, really? I said, great. I went to my acting classes, and I did scene studies and worked with my partners, and you would know, but look at me now. I would forget to eat. I'd go like 3 days without food. I was so excited. And I went to work every single day except Thursdays for Mr. Marks. And while I was there, someone in the class, because not everyone who was in the class were actors. They were writers, directors, wannabes. One was a writer. She'd written this play. And we had to audition if we wanted to be in it. No money. I got the lead. It was a comedy. And we did it at the Encino Community Center, you know, folding chairs. We didn't charge anyone. It ran 2 nights. The second night, after the second night, I got a call at my office. And the man said, his name was Orrin Borston, and then he worked in publicity at Universal Studios. He said, I want you to meet John Cassavetes. He said, you'd be the perfect for the lead in his new film, and Monique James, the head of our talent department. I said, okay, cut the bullshit. Who is this? He said, I understand you're being skeptical. Why don't I have Miss James call you? Well, she did. I went and met her. She asked me to prepare a scene. Took me months to prepare it. I found another actor at General Service Studios where I was working. And she called once. She said, are you ever bringing that scene in? And I said, well, Miss James, my uncle, Jack Bauer, said that to make sure it's letter perfect. Because he said, you occasionally remember when someone's good. You never forget when they're bad. She laughed. She said, just bring it in. So I did, and she signed me to a 7-year contract that night.